Oh. Good afternoon. So yes, it's funny actually looking back at this project at the first video, which was already, I don't know, I think it was about 6 months ago now. And I talk about the plans of what to do with this pile of car. It's funny, I think I said in that video, number one, I'd just put it back together and get it running. To be honest, it would already be done now. It would be running. Or number two, where I said turn it into a bit of a sleeper chummy. And funnily enough, I said there, I was like, I'm not going to do that. That's too much work. Lo and behold, 6 months later, and yeah, it's happened. This is what scope creep does. Scope creep is awful. Scope creep is when you have this idea, have an idea of something you want to do, but then you go, oh, but if I do this, I could do this, ooh, ooh, ooh. And all these oohs happen and all these functions get added because the actual process of doing the thing is quite a long-winded process already, that you end up adding extra bits on top of it. Ultimately, to the point that scope creep, the end game of scope creep is nothing gets done. It's just a never-ending cycle of nothing getting done, which it always scares the heck out of me. And with all other projects like electronic projects and things that I do, I really try my hardest to, when I've got the idea, try and stick to that idea and keep it simple. Stop trying to think of going, oh, if I do this, I could do that. Oh, let's keep on adding more stuff. Oh, no, it's not done. It's just a really complicated mess. One of the biggest things that I did like that was the Game Boy Mega Machine. That just turned out horrendously complicated because I kept on going, oh, I could do this, I could do that. And one day I'll finish that. And I think, honestly, the best way of me finishing that is taking it completely to pieces and just simplifying it back to the essence of the idea that it originally was. Instead of all of this crazy, silly ideas of having presets and, yeah, gosh knows. That was all over the place. Anyway, I learned my lesson from that, and since then I've been really trying to... Scope creep actually didn't get in the way, really, of the Big Bogey Mini. The only thing that it really creeped up on was the supercharger that was plugged onto the engine. The rest of it's very much the same. Managed to get that done in the space, collectively managed to get that car done in the space of about 2.5 months overall. I did have a break of about 2 months in between because I was like, I can't do this anymore. Because it was every day, was like, but 2.5 months from completely rusted and nothing left to a functioning, well, reasonably functioning machine was all right. Anyway, we're going on to this car now. So this has been scope creeped to heck and back. Yeah, so basically it's going to be the complicated project. It is becoming the sleeper chummy, as you can tell. Right now, machining. So you'll see that the diff, since the last video, the diff has been put together, and I'm about to get the axle plopped in and make sure it's meshing correctly. And I've also started machining. And I've also started machining the back plates, and all of this stuff will be for the next video. However, this is a bit of an intermission video because, yeah, something's happened and I've talked myself into something silly. So basically, I've talked myself into going on Facebook Marketplace and getting a few more boxes of bits of Austin 7. Yeah, I know. Oh dear. Actually, in hindsight, I don't know why I'm doing this, but I'm going to try and justify to you what I've done. So you'll see in these pictures, this listing has actually been up for about 2.5 months or so. Screw it, I'm just going to send an offer and see what happens. And yeah, we came to an agreement, and yeah, basically I've ended up with this pile of bits. It's about 4 hours away, so we're about to do that in a second. But why have I gone for this? Well, if you look at this listing, you'll notice it's actually got Bowdenex front suspension. It's got the Bowdenex front hydraulic brakes. It's also got a 1931 chassis, some healthy looking rear lowered leaf springs. And the main thing that I saw on this one was the really nice refurbished 16-inch wheels. And there's also a slightly later engine, assuming with a thicker crankshaft, which is good. And then there is a gearbox. Could be 3-speed, but a slightly later one. I'm not sure yet. There's a load of box of bits, and basically why I've gone for this is, you see, I got these are 17-inch wheels. I got 5 of them that were in reasonably bad condition for £70 off eBay, off a nice guy up in Essex, and yeah, they're really good. But then I found myself reading this, and my initial plan was to use the 17-inch ones and you know, do a bit of refurbishment. I think one of them needs new spokes that I would do myself, but then I was plagued by the idea of, if I do that, then I also need to buy the tyres and everything, and ultimately I would really like some slightly smaller ones. So for me, it felt like a bit of a waste of time or possibly a waste of money if I'm going to be taking this kind of car a few more steps into scope creep. I've been reading this book recently. I've been reading a load of the Austin 7 books, but this is the one I'm on at the minute. It's Austin 7 Specials, Building, Maintenance and Tuning by L.M. Williams. And this one's actually really quite good. It lays it out quite nicely. There's a bunch of different books. There's loads of books on Austin 7s actually, and yeah, this is just the latest that I've been reading, and it's definitely a lot of food for thought of things. In fact, I'm on this page now. This is a thing that I'm actually like, oh, I'm going to do that. Is this drawing right here, which is actually boxing in the bottom of the chassis. So the chassis is a U-bar. It's basically the top. So remember in one of the other videos, I took the radius arms and boxed them in to not bend when you put good brakes on the car. But then also for the same reason, it suggests you do that to the chassis. And there's a bunch more beefing up to do. And ultimately, I think I'm going to have to do that. What else it says in this is it really highly praises 16-inch wheels. 16-inch wheels seem to be the kind of middle ground for like, you know, still looking like classic and good, but actually usable, and you can go around corners reasonably well and also fit reasonably chunky tires. For instance, this picture of this sleeper chummy that actually this picture of this racing chummy is the thing that gave me the idea for the whole project in the first place. And that one I think is 16-inch wheels. I think they might be 15-inch, but 16-inch, whichever they are smaller than 17. So it sent me off on a bit of a goose chase. So yeah, so we're basically gonna go and drive up to Stoke-on-Trent and pick up all this stuff. Mainly for the wheels, but for everything else. And I'm going to keep everything, and then when I've got this all put together, I'll work out if there's any bits and bobs that I can get rid of. But there's more justification. We'll talk about it in a bit. Anyway, let's get on the road. Let's get on the road. Stoke-on-Trent! Yes, we're going somewhere near Stoke-on-Trent. Anyway, it's about 4 hours away. I'm leaving and it's 2:30 now. It's going to be dark in about half an hour. I think I might have left it a little bit late because I'm not going to be back beyond midnight. Like, this is one of those things. Just left Stoke-on-Trent. And we got the stuff. I've got a little bit of buyer's remorse if I'm honest, but I think it's worth it overall. Just got to work it out, but we'll have a closer look because it's really dark when we get back. But there's the wheels. There's all the bits. And the amazing thing is, if you watched any of the videos, you'll recognise this bit. Oh yes, it's that bit. Do you know what that bit is? Oh, it's the Boudreau front thingamagoop. Not as heavy as I thought, actually. It is quite heavy. Anyway, we'll check this all when we get back. Look, we've got the wheels. We've got the... Oh, those wheels are awesome. Oh, so it is now the morning, and I've got to be honest, at 2 a.m. this morning, when I was unloading it all, I did have a slight bit of buyer's remorse. But now looking at the pile, I'm actually kind of pleased I've gone for it. I'm going to have to sell some of the bits to be able to kind of make it work, but I'll be doing that in time. I don't want to sell bits that I later find I need until I've got quite a bit further. Anyway, the nice surprise is this, actually. We've already touched on this in the video about the suspension, and this is interesting because, yeah, I've never seen one in real life. This is a legitimately real Boudreau front coil pack setup. Whether I use it or not is a complete other question because obviously made that friction damper thing. It's just but you never know. This car is going to be a bit of time and experimentation. This is just merely a first iteration. But the cool thing is it's not as heavy as I thought, and also it basically sits onto the chassis like this, and it lines up, and then these line up and connect over here to where I've actually mounted it. It looks kind of cool, doesn't it? So that is the front Boudreau suspension coil thing. That's a real one. How cool is that? And that isn't the only real Cambridge engineering thing, of course. We've got the Boudreau suspension that it came with, which is this. One thing I didn't realise, and I completely forgot that this was a thing, was the fact that this is the more common wider track version. So this is a lot wider. And I was lucky enough to find the shorter track one. So this is about 2 inches. Oh no, it's a lot wider. It's about 3 or 4 inches wider. Oh shit. So this is the really wide track version, and apparently this one is more common. I'm really happy to have found the shorter one so we can maintain the width of the chummy because we're making a sleeper chummy, of course. But yeah, and the other thing is this actually has the machined earlier front hubs, and it's also got the modified Boudreau front pads. So I'm assuming that these might actually have been machined in-house. Ooh, these might have been machined for 2 shillings. Oh my gosh. Ooh. Nice and free, actually. Nice and free. Could play this. That one's a little bit wonky, but that's pretty good, that. As you can see from the back of it, it has been welded very much the same as the ones that we did for the back of this. And yeah, it's quite similar. It's nice to actually see another example of it actually in the flesh, being able to take it to pieces. I'm going to keep hold of these until I know for certain that the ones I've made are remotely any good. And then if they are not, I will pass these on, because I have had a couple of messages of people wondering where to find these. So maybe. So if I don't need them, I will, of course, pass them on. Have a look in the box. There's a few quite nice pieces. So this is a single piece steering wheel. Quite a nice steering wheel, actually. It's a better example than the one that I got with this. So probably going to use that. All metal and an aluminium on the inside. And then we've also, sod's law, we've also got the rear back plates. I did not realise that these came with it. Oh, this is so good. Oh man, we've got the rear hydraulic conversion. And I've already started milling the other ones. Oh man. But yeah, this is interesting. So this is how they look. I mean, these are really cool. These are really nice, actually. I might, oh, do I just use these instead? They actually feel quite a chunk lighter, weirdly enough. Weirdly enough, because these alloy cast ones are actually quite thick that I've been machining, they're not actually that much weight difference. That's quite strange. Interesting. So yeah, oh man, choices. All of the buses have come at once. I have no idea what else is in here, but we'll have a look. So we've got, ooh. This is, I think, a big 7 track rod. Sod's law, that has turned up. We got a central shaft for the steering wheel. What else have we got in here? Oh, please be a raked steering assembly. That's interesting. That's very interesting. Is that part of a Austin 8? Is that from an Austin 8? That's quite an interesting piece. Okay, that looks like a standard steering arm. Interesting. I was hoping there was going to be a raked steering box, but there isn't. Raked means there's a bit more of an angle to it. The middle one is the one from the actual Austin 7 that we're working on. But yeah, I think I'm going to stick with that one. But we'll see. What else is in the box? Shall we have a look? See? Got a few other bits and bobs. Rear friction arm. The rest of it's not that interesting, really. It's all just extra spares. Probably plenty of asbestos. Lovely jubbly, tasty. Oh, there's a few new bits. That looks like some new front suspension clamps, so that's cool. And a few brand new wheel studs. That's nice. And that brings us on to the cool bit. Oh, interesting. Oh, there's some interesting bits. There's a handful of interesting bits, that's for sure. New ones of these for the springs, that's cool. Okay, there is some interesting bits and bobs. Funnily enough, a few of these things I wish I had a few months ago, to be honest. But these things are the piece de resistance. This is the main catalyst for the purchase. We've got really nice 16-inch wheels that look like they've actually been re-spoked. And these are just a slightly smidge bit smaller. If you go any smaller, I think the wheels look a bit too small. But these are like, you can look how wide they are. We can fit some pretty chunky tyres onto this. This is actually a big 7 axle. It's actually been modified to be able to fit with the springs of the Austin 7 chassis. And, you know, we're not going with this because we're not going with the wide track. But there is this and the wider Bowdenex that is probably up for grabs with the chassis as well, to be honest. But I have a good feeling I'm keeping hold of these springs because they've got a slight bit more of a bend on them, and I think that might help us quite a bit. And they've been wrapped and waxed, which is pretty snazzy. Here's the engine. I'm hoping, and now I don't know the engines off by heart, so I might be wrong. Please, just don't shout at me if this is wrong. But from the looks of it, this looks like the 1931 engine. I think it's got the starter motor on this side, so it's not actually in the cabin anymore. So the ring gear is on here. You've got the clutch there. You've got the low compression head. You can tell by that water outlet. And you've got it should have the distributor on there. So with any luck, this might have a 2 bearing, but thicker crankshaft, which I think would be a better basis to work and make a better engine from. Or maybe, one assumes, maybe. Or we might stick with the Magneto anyway. Another really cool thing is a 4-speed gearbox. So if you know, the one that we've got with this is a 3-speed. So slight modifications required, but we can plonk this on it, come what may, whichever engine it ends up with. It's going to be the 4-speed. Oh, baby. And then we could build a kind of remote gear change because the steering wheel is going to be a bit further back. Oh, yeah, sleeper chummy, here we come. So what do you reckon? Is this completely daft? I'm going to have to justify it by getting rid of a few of these things, but I will do in time. To be honest, after putting this together, I'll probably have enough to put together a whole other running chassis. So whether I split it up or not, I don't know. So, but it's just absolute sod's law because I've got a full set of the hydraulic brakes now. They look to actually have been the original ones made by Cambridge Engineering, so oh gosh knows what to do. And that thing, of course, looks pretty awesome, but there's a lot of things to do before even thinking about that. And also, it will get in the way with the radiator shroud, so the radiator shroud needs modifying. I think the radiator can fit right in front of it, but yeah. Completely forgot to talk about the chassis. So this is apparently the 1931 chassis. There's only a couple of slight differences between this and the earlier one. I think they happened in 1929, and that is mainly this thing, this cross brace that goes all the way from where the radius arms sit for the front axle and the back cross member. So it kind of seats the cross members together, and also the brake rod goes through there. I'm actually going to do something similar to this to here, because obviously we've added better brakes, and from what I've heard is when you add better brakes, then that ends up bending. So the plan is to actually make a brace. Well, after boxing these in, of course, this is going to be in the same video, is making a brace that goes from there over to the spring bolt, which is right there, get in focus, and then there over to the spring bolt, so it's like a triangle that counteracts the triangle there, and also it means that you don't cut holes and modify it too much, which is good. So yeah, anyway, that's the rant over. Right now I'm gonna keep most of it and figure out what to do, but if you see anything that's remotely of interest, let us know, except for the hydraulic back plates and the things, because I'm gonna keep hold of those until I know the ones I've done are any good. But yeah, and the chassis, that's something that's gonna be up for grabs, and the wider rear and front axle suspension setup, except for the back plates, of course. Sorry. In this book, it actually goes to talk about the 15 and 16-inch wheels, and it mentions on the front you go for best using 4-inch section tires, and on the rear 5-inch it mentions that it's a waste of time going any thicker on the front. So yeah, as far as the rears are concerned, the wider the tighter section, the better adhesion. This alteration will have a very noticeable effect on road holding, as well as improve the riding comfort.